You're welcome back. This is Newsfile. It's the most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. It's brought to you by Bank of Africa, strong as a group and close as a partner, MTN everywhere you go. Ashasi University, educating ethical and entrepreneur leaders for Africa. Robert and Sons Optical Services, your comprehensive eye care services provider since for 31 years. Waylead Properties, home is where one starts. CBG, we stand with you. Edlom Housing, where spacious homes cost less. Duraplast, where Duraplast goes, water flows. And Rehoboth Properties, quality housing for all. So just share just a couple of your messages. This one from Abdul Malik Kukubako with rare artillery support says that Parliament can and must do something about sections 207 and 208 and even the laws on contempt, same way criminal libel and seditious laws were dealt with. You remember the Supreme Court held that the criminal libel and seditious laws were constitutional in the Tommy Thompson, Ben Korku, Kofi Kumsin case. The way forward lies in some legislative engineering. The ball is in the court of the legislature. So thank you, Abdul Malik Kubako, editor-in-chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper. Dr. Angela Jonobuaji says that content regulation is important to protect vulnerable persons too, such as children. Cybersecurity Act is an example. And as Audrey referred to, she says hate speech, so-called, must be clearly defined. Clarifying what constitutes hate speech is also a form of content regulation we don't have in this country, and we must work at it. Okay, so bugbing is the phenomenon. Is the phenomenon we are seeing a simple case of misreporting by media? Which media does the speaker watch or listen to? And this is from Kweku. So which media does he listen to? Interesting. Another side to this discussion is the constriction of space for free expression. The repeal was precipitated by the experience of the media in the Rawlings era and was a direct campaign request. Question is, are we looking to err on the side of free expression or on the side of regulation and enforcement? The answer, it does appear, depends on whether the respondent is in government or in opposition, unfortunately. And that's Malco. Thank you for that as well. And Mauli Atachi says, in general, media in Ghana is fairly responsible. Notwithstanding, one or two bad nuts seem to have overshadowed the mainstream media, mostly because they seem to have a certain political backing plus certain high-level elite in society. Still, free speech must stand with fair balance. Pilolo 4 says, the media focuses more on solely and do bad job. Solely is money that some media people take and do a bad job. Example, constantly asking government why they won't refine our crude oil for local use at a cheap rate. They rather call people to discuss world prices, speak big terms to portray knowledge. I didn't get that part. Boachi Emmanuel says there should definitely be a criminal element to regulation of free speech. Whoa. People have lost their lives unnecessarily because mischievous people have published false news about COVID-19 vaccine. Who is going to sue those propagandists for defamation? Opipihini says, I explicitly, without equivocation, think that it will be just barbaric in this day and age, dispensation of free speech, one would be gagged from airing his views, especially when he does so within the ambit of the law. I think that's the good qualifier you have put there. And that would be outright witch hunting. K. Amwa says, according to Section 208 of the Criminal Offences Act, publication of false news, who determines what is likely to cause fear and alarm to the public or disturb the public peace? Well, that's the court. That's why they take it to court. Then Embo says, certain individuals and institutions, if you defame them, you risk inciting or provoking mob action against them on their behalf. The police service has a role to ensure that people justify their accusations against such people or go before a judge expeditiously. Last one from Parkwesi. The irresponsibility in the media space is too much. The people in there are competent, no doubt, but political capture is what is running media in Ghana now. That's, you say, is your opinion. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. Now, let me introduce my next set of guests. Of course, we are joined by Kweku Pencil, Kweku Yamwa Pencil. He's a lawyer, senior member at the bar. Thank you for joining us. And as we commence the discussion, we may also be speaking to Xavier Koku Kuje, who is the Public Relations Officer of the Ghana Bar Association. I must say that it's been a rather difficult production for this particular topic, because there are people who prefer to express their views privately rather than be in the media space speaking about the question of judges. I'm talking about lawyers practically just running away from being public about it. This very last message I should read from the Jacob Osei-Yeboah, independent presidential candidate, says something: the media too uses its power against anyone who speaks ill against and about their bad attitude within the media. You yourself can witness how your own came against you when you became emphatic about nuances in the media. So each organ uses the power within its space to deal with unpleasant news instead of respecting the law per the tenets of democracy. The media can black you out, use their platform to also attack you. We Ghanaians or Africans are unconsciously lawless people and power drunk or dictatorial in our various levels. All right, thanks for that. Now, let's get to the judiciary. And let me begin with Kwenka. As a former Deputy Attorney General and still in the business of the practice of the law, what do you say about Sosu's comments, Francis Xavier Sosu's comments, which is getting him into trouble? Well, he doesn't feel like he's in any trouble. He's justified everything he says. But let's quickly listen to this quickly. Let's watch this.
I am begging you, if you make yourself a political judge, you will be treated as a political judge. What it means is that when you become a partisan, when you become very partisan as a judge, remember that your tenure of office as a judge will run with the political party that you favor. Let that be very, very clear, because political power is very transient. Positions are not possessions. So people will come, people will go. Remember, His Excellency George Rawlings, when he was full of power, and they asked him, will you be ready to hand over power? He said, to hand over power to whom? Because when you are full of power, you forget that there are even alternatives. I remember when Kufuor came to power, they said by the time they finished with NDC, after 8 years, there will be no political power known as NDC. It shocked him when Mills became president of the Republic of Ghana. So the current regime must be mindful of our political history and know that the power they hold today, tomorrow they may not have that power.
Right. The Ghana Bar Association issued a statement condemning these comments outright, and then the Association of Judges and Magistrates also issued a statement and have proceeded to file a complaint at the General Legal Council to sort of get him punished. What's wrong with the comments he made?
Now, Samson, thank you very much once more for this opportunity. Let me say that in dealing with matters like this, my preliminary comment would be that you need to situate whatever somebody says within a certain context and content. I'm talking about context because if you don't situate it within that context, your comment about the person may be over the bar. Now, what was the occasion that the honorable member made this statement?
The Yentua demonstration.
That was the situation. And Yentua demonstration, we were told, was organized by members of his party and other people.
That's right.
To register their displeasure. So what provoked him into veering into judicial matters with respect to this? What was the link between Yentua demonstration and talking about judges or courts? There seemed to me not to be any connection at all whatsoever between what he was doing at the time and the comments he made subsequently.
That's
my problem.
Does that matter?
But that does not matter. I would soon establish why I'm making the statement. You see, Samson, one thing that as Ghanaians, when we immediately misuse it or take it to the cleaners, will dampen all our aspirations as a democratic nation is the issue of attacking the judiciary. After all, at the end of everything, that is where you go to vindicate your rights. So if you are placed in a privileged position as a person, a lawyer especially, and you make comments that have the tendency of inciting the public against justices, or that has a tendency of undermining the administration of justice.
The judiciary is a third arm of government.
Absolutely.
Which arm of government is beyond criticism?
It is never, ever beyond criticism. But I'm saying situated within a context that everybody listening to you, or the majority of people listening to you, objectively will come to a certain level of conclusion. When you start talking about, this is our business as lawyers. What is our first cardinal principle? That anything we say ought to be supported by what? Evidence. That is the business of lawyers. You see, if you make an omnibus statement, then it may catch up with everybody else. Because what he has said virtually has roped in everybody until we get specifics from him. What he meant by that and who are political judges. And saying that, and what is even surprising, Samson, is that I know Sosu by our standard now is a senior lawyer.
Yeah,
He's more than 10 years at the bar.
Yes, he is.
And so if he's making certain utterances, he ought to give pieces of evidence to substantiate what he says. Then, at a point, Judge A, Judge B, Judge C, or D, by their conduct, have put themselves in a certain state or light that when there is a change of government, their tenure of office will be... And that is even more problematic. That bit of it is more problematic because, you see, when there's a change of government, the new government cannot come and say that Justice A or Justice B leave because you are a political judge. It cannot happen.
He's clearly aware of that.
But then he makes this statement. That's a political statement he made. Because you see, there is a procedure for removal of justices. And if you trigger it, you must go through the constitutional procedures to come to that conclusion. And then if it is about a justice of the Superior Court of Judicature, the complaint,
is a procedure that you use to remove Electoral Commission chairpersons, right? Commissioners.
Yes.
And some say that once the MPP was not happy with Charlotte Osei, they removed her. So if he says whatever, I'm just thinking.
Samson, if MPP, for me, I don't think the MPP was not happy with her and removed her. It was the processes constitutionally mandated that were followed through to get her removed from office. There was a complaint. There was a referral to the CJ, and the CJ made a prima facie determination. It went back there, and then a committee was constituted of eminent justices of the Supreme Court and others. And then they, after evidence, they arrived at a decision that indeed her conduct breached our constitution, and therefore she was removed from office. That was the process. So if they come into office and then they have any evidence against a person and a complaint is made and they go through this process, it is basically...
There are people who are complaining today that they have filed similar complaints. The president will simply not forward it for the processes to kick in.
An example. Because you remember recently, I think it was ASEPA or something that filed against, and the president forwarded it to the CJ to make a determination whether or not there's a prima facie case.
I'm on record as saying that was such a useless thing. The president didn't even need to waste his time on it.
Of course, I heard you, and I heard you bluntly. But the point is that if the president receives it, he has to forward it to the Chief Justice for determination, and then the Chief Justice then makes a determination, it comes back to the president. And at that stage, if there's a prima facie case, that is when they will now constitute the committee to look at the matter and then arrive at whether or not there is even any evidence at all. And if there is, and the person has no answers to it.
Is this a statement that should get the GBA against their own and get the judges taken before the General Legal Counsel, potentially for him to lose his license to practice as a lawyer?
You see, I think first of all, it should not have come from him. That has been my position from day one. I thought that it should not have come from him. Any ordinary member of society, not being a member of our noble profession, could make such utterances and will forgive the person. But the problem I have is the author, being a member of parliament and a senior lawyer, and making such utterances, the implication to society and what it can do generally. I mean, you have no idea. Sometimes I say this, Samson, as you sit to regulate or as host of Newsfile, you don't have any idea how you are admired out there, Samson. And I recall when you came to Bolga, I saw young men who are close to me. Is that Samson? They were rushing to you to come and listen to you and all that. What does it tell you? It tells you that any conduct of yours can influence them. That's what it means. So this is an honorable member of parliament and a senior lawyer who is making such statements. Then how about the ordinary members of society who are his supporters and who believe in him?
The NDC is aggrieved that because you are trying to pass e-levy and you can't pass it somewhat, you are trying to reduce their numbers in parliament through means including criminally prosecuting one of their members to remove him. And that's their problem. That's why he says...
Again, Samson, is that the first time that a certain member of parliament is being prosecuted criminally? During their regime, it happened. It was good.
Adamu Dramani Sakande,
even he didn't survive the implications of his imprisonment. At the end, he had to give up.
Okay, all right.
So for me, this is not the first time. I just want to touch a bit on that. I've heard people run commentary about MPP attempting to reduce NDC's numbers in parliament. The question you should ask yourself is, there are 137 NDC MPs. Why are they not all being prosecuted by one person? If he has questions to answer, he should answer. We are all equal before the law. So the charges that have been preferred against him, if he's innocent, the court will make a pronouncement. If he's guilty, the court will make a pronouncement. But you don't say that because the person is a member of the opposition, if you try him, therefore they will say it is political witch hunt. If an offense is committed, you should stand aloof. Then we will be making mockery of the constitutional injunction that says that we are equal before the law.
Okay. Yes, Pencil.
Yeah.
What do you say? There are some lawyers, including Sosu himself, who are unhappy with the GBA for issuing a statement sort of disowning their own. They're saying, what's your business in going to the defense of judges when one of your members has made a comment?
I think That's a very interesting. I belong to a lawyers' platform where these issues have been raised and discussed extensively, and anybody who's on the platform clearly knows my view on the subject. In the very first place, the GBA as a body, it's a voluntary body. You belong to it voluntarily. The GBA does not speak for one of its members. And the GBA is not going to keep quiet or shut its mouth merely because a member has done something which, in the opinion of the leadership, I'm using the word leadership because at any point in time, we've got an executive who must act on behalf of the association. And therefore, it's my view that when the GBA takes a position on the matter, it's irrespective of whether any particular member of the GBA stands A or stands B. What the GBA seeks to do is to articulate the kind of position that, at the very best, reflects what the association itself stands for. In that regard, the statement that Sosu made, it is for the GBA as a body to determine whether it was in the right spirit. And if it was not, it did not really matter to me that GBA condemned it. And indeed, and in fact, I support the condemnation. That the statement he made was outright irresponsible. And that is my view of the matter. It happens to coincide with the view of the leadership. It may also be on the other side. What it means is that the GBA is a collective of all manner of people who are in there with different persuasions, political, call it whatever. But as an association, we reflect certain principles, and irrespective of what a particular member's view on a matter is, the GBA will not be held back. So I support it. That's point number one. Indeed, and in fact, before the matter even went to the ethics committee, I'm talking about the
General Legal Council.
I had expressed an opinion that I wish this matter will find its way there. When I say so, it doesn't mean that we'll end in a particular conclusion. But what I mean to say is that such kind of statements made by a lawyer of standing cannot just be left to go the way it has. Because, as my colleague has already stated, it's a cardinal principle of our training that a lawyer must not put into writing or by voicing anything that he does not have the evidence to support it, especially when the allegation is one that is impugning impropriety to somebody. First and foremost, there is no such thing as a political judge.
Has he made an allegation?
Come again?
Has he made an allegation?
Well, the point that he made, that's the way I will put it. Because there's no factual basis, or if there's a factual basis, I haven't seen it yet. So, to the extent that you make a remark that there are political judges, when in law, there's nothing like a political judge. In other words, judges are appointed by politicians. But the Constitution provides safeguards. They are under no control. Once they go through the processes of being sworn into office, they become independent. And therefore, we don't look at our judges and begin to look at who became a judge who was in power. That's not how we categorize our judges.
What's wrong with that?
There's nothing wrong with it. When you mean categorizing judges, then you are giving the impression, if you call a judge a political judge, the point that you are making, I'm talking about, it's a form of innuendo, it's a form of suggestion. You are trying to suggest that that judge takes decisions based on his political persuasions. In other words, he would only align himself with the view of the particular political party who brought him into office, which indeed does not reflect the reality on the ground. There are perceptions.
Can't judges take decisions based on their political affiliations?
That is not
Don't judges have political affiliations?
Judges do.
Yes.
But you are not supposed to bring it out in the open. A judge can never sit on the bench and state that he belongs to a party. Other than that, then they have to recuse themselves in as many cases that come before the court, which are brought by politicians.
You're familiar with American realism?
Yeah, the American realist school of thought.
And therefore, if you went to the American Supreme Court,
that is all.
You might need an advice consultation to tell you if it's a political issue you're addressing in the court,
yes,
which judge you should address and not waste your time on which judge or that judge. It is because their political affiliation and orientation influence their decisions. So what's wrong with it?
The American Supreme Court is classified into liberals and conservatives, and they are known.
Exactly.
And there was all this politics about who to appoint and whatever. And therefore, every politician or American president tries to appoint somebody of his persuasion. We know that Trump tried to fill as many of the vacant positions with conservatives. But the conservatives have not been doing Trump's bidding. It is quite clear from the decisions that they give. They turn him down as many times over the entire period of the election dispute and stuff like that. And that shows what, in essence, a judge's work is supposed to be. That irrespective of the views that you have, when the issues come before you, it is the evidence and the law. It does not even matter how you agree. Indeed, and in fact, if the people that Trump appointed to the Supreme Court agree with him on everything, he will still be president by now. So that shows you the interplay of, I'm talking about what in strict terms we call separation of powers.
Right.
So it is very insulting.
So I guess my question is, why should the judge be worried, especially if that judge doesn't find themselves to be a political judge, quote unquote, like you're saying, who is a political judge? Why should a judge be worried? And I'm just looking at this University of Baltimore Law Forum. There's an article, How Judges Judge, Theories on Judicial Decision Making. And a judge's idiosyncrasies, a judge's feelings, how they felt the morning before they sat in court, and all of that.
Even how his wife treated him in the morning.
Exactly.
In Ghana, there's a story about Judge
this part says that the factors most likely to influence judicial decisions are: 1, direct influences, which include A, legal and political experiences, B, political affiliations and opinions, and C, intellectual and temperamental traits. And then 2, it says indirect and remote influences, which include a legal and general education, and B, family and personal associations, including wealth and social status.
Yes, you asked the direct question, I want to say it. Even if a judge, but please, let's put it this way. We know for a fact there are clerks of judges in the U.S. Supreme Court who have written books showing how judges come to conclusion. In our courts, when you speak to some of the clerks, they tell you how judges sometimes discuss with them. But all of these things, at the end of the day, goes through the crucible, and what comes out is supposed to reflect the law, the evidence, the facts, and everything. So what you do when you call a judge, a political judge, is what we call prejudice. You expose him to the public. And what then you are trying to do is that, don't mind this man. Whatever he does got nothing to do with the law that he studied. It's got more to do with how his wife talked to him this morning, how his goat was stolen last year, and so forth. So you ridicule a judge. And please, of all people in this country, the only category of people who can least defend themselves are judges. By the very nature, you see, that's what makes it very sensitive when you are dealing with judges and you don't have the evidence, and you are trading rumors, perceptions, allegations, trying to translate them into factual statements. That is very criminal. That's the way I would go as far as to put it.
Does it not matter that what he said was conditional?
Well, if he says conditional, even then, like my good friend started with the context. This is a volatile political environment, and you spit this into that atmosphere. What must people make of it? Because on a day, you see, I go back to prejudice. Prejudice is exposing somebody to a form of ridicule, hatred, call it what you like, without giving that person the equal opportunity to have his side of the matter heard. And even in terms of the generality, the way you generalize everything, at the end of the day, somebody sitting in his small corner who possibly is not being caught in the crucible, caught in all this drama, then what people say, didn't we say it? The people who say, didn't we say it, they themselves don't have the facts. Because don't forget about this Afrobarometer, all of these perception indexes that people run in this country, in which all kinds of allegations are made against people who have no opportunity to defend. They're already sitting on edge. So when you throw this one into it, you kind of inflame what is already a volatile situation. That's the way I see it. So it's not a very simple matter where people, judges in particular, can ignore it. As to whether at the end of the day he is guilty or liable for any particular, I'm not making a comment on that. But I would just make this general statement that it is not open to a lawyer for that matter. Of course, if the Macaulay woman who made this statement, it will not even be an issue. Yes. But when you take a lawyer, we call ourselves learned people. Learned people.
An honorable member of parliament.
And we have a code. At the end of the day.
So hold on, Kofi, it is a fact, is it not, that among judges, and right here in this country, there are people who have been party activists, there are people who have been party executives, political party executives, who have risen to become judges. So is it that far-fetched, unheard of, for anybody to raise the criticism that Sosu did?
Something, you are right. And my whole problem with, this whole discourse is that we should be normalizing the fact that judges have political leaning. I don't know why we keep making that such a difficult issue. And we should be normalizing the thoughts that regardless of a judge's political leaning, his or her judgments are based on the law, facts, evidence. And we all know judges. I'm telling you, almost every judge that I know makes decisions based on the law, the evidence, and the facts, regardless of their politics. So this whole thing about a judge has a political leaning, it is politicians who appoint judges. And no sensible politician will appoint a judge who is not of his fraternity. But we know the judges, when they are appointed, that they sometimes rule against their friends. So we should be normalizing, not making it look like it is a crime for a judge to have a political leaning and even to express it at certain places, especially private situations. That situation is what you are referring to in the US. It is very normal, it is known, it is put out there, and people adjust to it. Now, the issue here, however, is about perception against fact. And again, I am reflecting it on those of us lawyers here. We are dealing with a situation where the perception of Sosu as a politician and as an activist politician is being taken beyond the point and not the fact of what he said. I think Sosu should have been more circumspect and maybe avoided this kind of controversy leading to all these kinds of discussions. But what did Sosu say? He said, if you make yourself a political judge, then you will be judged as such. There is no problem with that. And the irony is I spoke to one judge who said that they don't see where the problem is. And they, the judges, have a problem with their colleagues who are political judges because they taint all of them. Samson, if you speak to them, you will know what I'm talking about. So what Sosu said, and we are lawyers, we pass words, we take issues, we draw them out, we pull out meanings. Why are we not doing it to this? He says, if you make yourself a political lawyer, you will run with the political system. And let nobody kid yourself. Look, like you said, they removed the easy check. If people are in power, they have everything they need to remove any judge. Whether they do it by fair or foul means, by the legal route or illegal route or some other route, power is power. So let us be clear about these things, that look, we urge that all the persons, and this is Newsfile, we are speaking to the public, everybody needs to know that our judges, for the majority of them, the absolute majority of them, regardless of anything, really rule on the basis of law and not their political affiliations. But they do have political affiliations.
Yes.
We need to normalize that.
Sosu has, written back twice. After the GBA issued a statement, he issued a statement back calling their bluff and asking them to focus on their core mandate and stop doing what they are doing. The judges and magistrates also spoke to the press and then said they had filed a complaint. He returned and said, look, I'm speaking truth to power. If you are not comfortable with it, deal with it. But I have said nothing that is wrong, cannot be said. And he's actually said that he's ready to lose his license as a lawyer. He has come close to that. He suffered a 3-year ban, but he got a court. A court, vindicated him, and he got a shorter period.
Yeah. I mean, and look, Samson, I always say that of the whole spectrum of people who constitute the human race, it is activists who move us forward faster than anybody else. The people who go out there and push the boundaries.
You say as a lawyer, you would not have chosen his words. So why do you still find it okay?
I find it okay because even if I disagree with Sosu, I respect his right to be an activist and to speak what he believes in, especially if he chooses his words well, like he did in this instance. I may not do the same thing. I may not advise other people to do the same thing because your license is your livelihood. And there are people who are fond of filing frivolous and useless, complaints at the General Legal Council. And you never know how that is going to turn out. So you might want to consider that. But not all of us are necessarily in fear of that stuff. And to that extent, I think Sosu reserves a right to voice what he needs to voice. I mean, I am resisting speaking about the Ghana Bar Association because I have very little positive stuff to say about them. In the last decade or so, we think that the Ghana Bar Association could have done things differently and could have been more relevant to all of us. So the fact is that
the question of relevance of the Ghana Bar Association has come up on the back of this. I have tried to review some of the statements they have made or issued over the period. The problem particularly has been that they don't, come to the aid of the ordinary when they are suffering human rights abuses and the rest of them. I've reviewed in the last 3 years or so, and I've seen that they have issued tons of messages, as if sometimes we forget that they have been doing these things.
Samson, I will resist discussing the Ghana Bar Association. Let me put it this way. If the Ghana Bar Association was truly voluntary, I have no doubt that a whole load of lawyers would elect not to be members of the Ghana Bar Association. So I'll resist discussing the Ghana Bar Association. I don't think.
Okay, hold it on there. Yes, Prince.
First and foremost, the Ghana Bar Association is wholly voluntary.
Yeah, we know that it might.
No, it's wholly voluntary.
In law, that is what it is, but No.
But there's nobody. I mean, what Blue chose to set up.
Hello, Samson, do you hear me? Hello, Samson.
Yes, Kofi.
I think we'll be wasting time discussing whether the Ghana Bar Association is voluntary or not. I think you should use the time better. So let's move on to Sosu.
Thank you. Yes. Let's hear from Mr. Pinso.
But with respect to
yes, that's your right.
Nobody finished or was called to the bar and was instructed by the General Legal Council to go and register with the Ghana Bar Association. I think that must be put as a matter of fact. I mean, there are facts that we must put out as lawyers. That's point number one. Point number two, listen, as lawyers, we are regulated in the main by a code of etiquette, rules of conduct. Currently, it is LI 2423. It's the LI 2423 that regulates the way a lawyer must conduct the business of a lawyer, including the fact that if a lawyer, you've got evidence of something that a judge does that puts him out to be unfit for the office, you don't sit down with it. It is an imposition by statute, albeit a legislative instrument.
I do this work.
Yes.
And by virtue of this show that I host,
yes,
and several others, I have had situations where I've had to be plain to go to the defense of a judge or judges.
Yes.
There have been times when they have done things that deserve the praise. We have said it.
That is so.
Why is it that we cannot say things that they feel unpleasant about?
No, it's not even that. It's not the case. Judges can be open to criticism, heavy criticism, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Yes.
I mean, that point was made very clear. Yes. But there are contexts within which it must be done. In the case where you have a case, see, the whole idea that don't put in the mind of the public that when a judge does something wrong, he can remain in office as long as the political party he belongs to is also in office. It is a very dangerous statement. And to suggest further that as a lawyer, you've got evidence to show that a certain judge is not fit to be in the office by reason of his political persuasion. The evidence must be that the judge has certain influences, certain...
He gave an advice without particularly saying that somebody is a political judge.
Yeah, but my good friend asked the question. Somebody must answer it. What prompted that advice? You advise judges when you are doing demonstration?
When you are doing demonstration about the e-levy, and the e-levy for which the minority accuses the majority of seeking to reduce their numbers so that they can pass it, and by which they say that the prosecution of one of their members
Then when you
is
do it,
political.
then you put it
If he's
in
not guilty,
context.
will he be pronounced
You know,
guilty?
then when you do it, then you're accusing the judge with the conduct of that matter as likely to be influenced by his political persuasions. And that is not fair. Indeed, you have put it on the spot. If this is put within the context, even before the judge has had opportunity to look at the evidence, you are prejudging the matter.
You say it is okay that this should go to the General Legal Council
No,
for
General Legal
discipline.
Counsel. No. It's a General Legal Counsel. The whole idea of General Legal Counsel is a complaint that somebody makes against you on the basis that you've engaged in conduct A and B, which in my opinion, violates the Code of Conduct, LI 2423. Obviously, we know the way these things must be proved and how you must go through. I mean, in my own mind, let me tell you what. One of the things, for instance, that now if you know how the General Legal Counsel operates, it is made up of so many judges.
I know, I've been
So
there.
one of the first things, when this thing happened, I was asking myself, how are they going to try this matter?
Exactly.
Because this allegation has been made against judges. Now, the JLC is made up of virtually so many judges and a few lawyers. So would the judges...
Even the disciplinary committee is
lawyer-
presided over by a Supreme Court justice.
That-
Yes,
so.
the disciplinary committee, you have a lawyer representing the lawyers.
Good.
Now, the Bar Association is the one condemning the gentleman. And then the judges who should be sitting there are the ones also condemning him publicly and filing. So what happens to the rule of natural justice that says
we
that
haven't
you
read
cannot
there.
be a judge in your own
we
courts?
haven't read there.
It's
Because
one of
when
the
they
issues I know he's
go,
going to
when they
raise.
go,
Yeah.
that's one of the first issues that has to be resolved. The composition of the panel that will determine this matter. Let's not say that because the complaints made by judges. I mean, somehow a resolution will be found. Yes.
A point of information. Are you aware, and I know you are aware, that the General Legal Counsel has taken decisions in the past, presided over by the Chief Justice. And such decisions have been challenged in lower courts.
Yes.
And they've declared the act of the General Legal Counsel as illegal.
So is an
Yeah,
example.
including Sosu's case.
It has happened.
Yeah, clear
So
to
it is
say.
possible when they get there,
Yeah.
it is going to be based on evidence, not personal prejudices. But
But what are they going to be
It's more-
investigating?
it's more-
What are they going to be investigating? He makes a statement.
That
He says,
conduct.
if you do this, if you do that, what are you going to investigate?
they're going to look at that context.
No,
And
I'll
then-
give you one.
I
I'll give you one
just
answer.
wanted to give you two things quickly about this issue of political judges. I heard my brother
Kofi Bento.
Kofi Bento. You see, you may say that judges have political orientations, but at the same time, they have posterity to judge them. And that is always at the back of their minds.
They are human.
They are human, yes. Let me give you an example. You used the US extensively as an example, but I'm sure you forgot to just indicate that in the Watergate scandal, for example, when they had to constitute the justices to look at it, some appointments were made by the president. But when they retired, they returned a verdict of all justices against the president. So that mentality of saying that when you appoint somebody, he owes allegiance to you, in most cases will not work.
If he has,
Now,
to
when
be,
you go back
if he has to be views, my view is that if you're a judge
Yes.
and you are appointed
Yes.
and you still have to look back and think about what some politician would do, then you are even not worthy to
You are
be a
not
judge.
fit.
So let's get back even to here in Ghana, 31st December. The justices who presided over the matter, all of them were appointed by Rawlings. He lost that case, 31st December. By, is it 5-4 majority or something? You know, he lost it.
Yeah, so
What-
so let me hear
Yeah.
him quickly. Do you still think this should be pursued in the
I
manner it's
believe
been done?
so. For no reason at all, I could ask the simple question. Even if this were, like you said, mere allegations, is it the truth and the law that when a judge misbehaves or when a judge is unfit for his office, it takes another administration to remove him instead of when the
People are referencing what has Kweku Ansansare, what has he not said about judges? What has Samuel Kujeto not said about judges? What has Chachu Chiketa not said about judges? What has he said?
No, Samson, you see, my little point is that I
Okay,
wanted him to be a little specific.
okay, so
I wanted him to be a little specific.
very unfortunate. I'm sure that we certainly had very limited time, and so we have not been able to exhaust this issue in the manner that we had anticipated. My guests have been Joseph Premka Dindiok and Kweku Yamwa Pencil. Kofi Bento was on the phone. Samson Laye, have a good afternoon. We see you again next week, God willing.